Now it's time for Culture Swap.
Swap my culture.
Thank you very much. So, right, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We discussed doing this when we were speaking about Godzilla and Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
Which was not on this show, by the way. Worth maybe calling out the
listeners
who might be baffled about the mysterious Kong Island episode that doesn't seem to be in the Nerd on Nerd catalogue.
Yeah,
Such
you
a
need
fun
to go
show.
to the Atlantic Screen Connection podcast and go through their episodes to find that.
I'll send you the link. You can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I will do that.
But yeah, that was 2 years ago, and we threatened each other by saying we'd have to do this again someday. You know, like when the next Godzilla finally came.
So,
and lo and behold, but at least we can keep a promise. You know.
Exactly. Before we dive into Godzilla King of Monsters, just for our listeners that maybe didn't listen to that episode or don't want to go and listen to, I think we recorded for 3 hours or something crazy.
But it's
something
us.
crazy.
Why
He
wouldn't
looks
they
at
want-
looks at the time code of this episode and like, yes, something crazy.
Yeah.
It's like already 2 hours.
It's a fun episode. We have a great time talking. So I mean, if people
Yeah.
aren't charmed by that, then what they have, they're emotionless
exactly.
bastards. Fuck them.
Shall we just kind of get them up to speed with what our very brief thoughts and feelings were on Godzilla and Kong Skull Island?
Oh, sure. Godzilla, I loved the 2014 Godzilla. I really, really, really liked. And Kong Skull Island, I haven't revisited. I thought it was a dumb movie. I didn't care for it at all. I liked the way that they made Godzilla, King Kong, but I didn't. Look, I have to preface all this by saying that I might say a few times that it doesn't make sense. The story doesn't make sense. And at the same time, I am fully aware that Godzilla, a giant fucking lizard, and then King Kong, a giant fucking gorilla, don't make sense in and of themselves either. But that's it. To me, Godzilla made more sense than Kong Skull Island. But, that's it. So yeah, I really, really love Godzilla. I haven't rewatched it since the time we talked about it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch it before going see King of Monsters. I didn't get a chance. But Kong Skull Island, I'll eventually rewatch it, but I didn't feel the need to.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I pretty much echo Jason's on there, and the only thing worth adding is that as time has gone on, I've forgotten a lot about Godzilla 2014 or whatever year it came out.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't remember, having not heard the episode in a while. I can't remember also what the fuck I was talking about. So I'm not even sure. But I do remember enjoying it, and I more vividly remember Skull Island. And I specifically remember why I don't like Skull Island, which is at least something.
Okay.
Because it's dumb. But
It's a beating drum of the dum.
And Ellie?
I also agree with Jason and Lee in that I love Godzilla and didn't particularly like Skull Island. I do, however, remember my reasons on the episode for liking Godzilla.
Nice.
Because I remember everyone had laid out these really beautiful in-depth, the film was all this, and then at the end someone asked me what I thought, and I was like,
Godzilla.
I can't do smart, I just like the big lizard fighting things.
That's right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's of all the things in the episode, other than that we didn't agree with Liam a lot, you saying I just like big monsters fighting.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't not like the first Godzilla. I just didn't love it. I had more issues with it than anyone else here did.
Yeah.
And I actually did really like Kong Skull Island. So you can imagine how fun that episode was to record, where it was just 3 people.
We got good bits
just
out of that,
hating it.
man. We got really good bits. It's like
Call
when
me
I
gold.
remember this will always be one of my favorite things of all the recordings that I've ever had. And it was when I told you, but it's the hero's journey. And then when I finished breaking it down, when you just said, if anything, you've made me like it less. And I was just like, that's not only is that perfect comedic timing, it's just one of those things where you're like, you can break things down as much as you want, give all the reasons. And if that feeling at the bottom of your heart is like, I don't care, it's valid. And it's one of those. It was an eye-opening thing for me. Is the reason why we don't.
You
do
ruined
this.
the show from that point on.
Exactly. I was just like,
the luster was already
Who gives
fading.
a shit?
Yeah. No, it was a super fun episode, and listeners definitely should go and listen to that if they haven't already. But yeah, so that's how we're coming into Godzilla King of the Monsters. A lot of love for Godzilla, not a lot of love for Kong, which doesn't really matter for this film. in all
No.
honesty. That's one of the things I didn't realise going into this. I didn't realise that there'd been another film already announced that was titled Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I went in being like, I can't wait to see my boy Kong representing, and like he's there for all of about 3 seconds.
In, like, screenshots.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should say this bit will be full of spoilers for Godzilla King of the Monsters. If you haven't seen it and
Oh,
you
yeah.
really want to, maybe turn us off for a bit, go see the film, and then flick this back on.
Yeah, why not?
Just want to preface this by showing you the notes that I have for today's episode. There you go.
Awesome. That should be good.
Yeah,
So,
we're going.
Before watching this,
Traditional.
the other thing I'd heard is that the
There's
monster
nothing on the
fighting
sheet, Lee.
stuff.
I know,
The
that's
monster
what's
fighting
traditional
stuff
about it.
is all good, but the human element was sucky, and so I kind of went in with that in mind. Like that's the only thing I'd seen on like I think Twitter or something. Someone had said that, and a lot of people were kind of like countering that by saying, "Well, why are you going to see a film called Godzilla King of the Monsters expecting good like a good human story attached to it?" But for me, like this for me was better than Godzilla, but not as good as Kong Skull Island.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I super
It's
enjoyed
gonna be a
Kong Skull
fun
Island.
20 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
So that's me. I'll let you guys, start with the bumming of this film.
Hey. Well,
Oh,
first
hold
of
on.
all,
No, I won't.
there's
shit
been
on
there's been a shift in things because I'm with you, Lame. I'm fucking. I like this film. I really did, and maybe not less than Skull Island, which seems insane, but like. But yeah, no, I'm not going to be on. I have to at least be on your team this time. You're going to not be alone.
But how much did you like this film?
I would say for about up until the 70%, like it's sort of 7/10 of the way through the film, I was really enjoying it. Dumb and bad parts and good parts all alike. I was like, this is. I'm entertained. I'm very entertained, and I like the concepts and the shit that I'm looking at. I kind of like the story and the characters, even if they don't really exist. and they kept giving me things to think about, which was surprising because I didn't expect to be thinking about anything. And when it started, I certainly felt like it was going to there's not going to be a thing worth talking about in this fucking film. And as it went along, I was like, oh, you know what? There's some really strange decisions being made here. I keep thinking about them, and I've now written them down in traditional Atlantic Screen Connection way, and I look forward to getting into them at some point. But sort of only towards the end when the action just becomes so fucking all over the place that I start really checking out. Up until that point, I was like, this is just really good, and I left thinking, I'm surprised. This was a really good time.
Yeah.
Would watch again.
Fair enough. Jason, how about yourself?
It's complicated. I didn't go in with high expectations because I know that they're trying to build this universe, MCU style. I know that Warner are the ones behind this as well. They're the ones that have the DC property. And you can just smell, I don't know how to say it, corporate greed is probably the best way to look at it, as them trying to really do too many things at the same time, as opposed to just do their series of movies like this guy versus this guy versus this guy. They just threw too many things in my opinion, for this one. So much so that I actually started falling asleep halfway through it because I didn't care.
Yeah.
They show Godzilla within the first minute, and I was like, that's a mistake. Right off the bat, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. This is not good.
Yeah.
They don't make me earn the monster the way that the original Godzilla did. The original, I mean, the 2014 version, the first one in this series.
Yeah.
The same way with Skull Island. I thought that it was good that they withheld the ape for a big period of time. This one, I understand that this is like kind of a flashback scene in which they show Godzilla, and then after that, they kick into the story. They try to set us up, and then we understand the context in which that happened. The thing is that they kind of Pacific Rim themselves to the point where like all the fights are kind of clumsy in the rain and dark and shit like that.
Yeah.
Where I admired like the first Godzilla and even Kong Skull Island for actually taking risks and doing it during the day, which means that they had to be a little bit more accurate with their CGI. This one, they just kind of buried all their crap in darkness, and I think that takes a lot away from the movie. A lot of the times I felt like I was watching Transformers again, which was kind of, I was like, oh, come on. And the human element, there's some good parts, there's some bad parts. Did I care about the divorced family? No. Do I care about Vera Farmiga's Thanos-like plot of trying to erase half humanity? I was like, oh well, it feels like they're trying. It feels like they're trying to make the movie according to what's popular at the time, rather than really telling a good story.
Yeah.
So like the whole, to me, there's two metaphors that are conflicting in this one. One is like King Ghidorah would be a representation of like the wrongful king in Donald Trump, and then you'll have also the idea that humanity has to go because we're just killing the planet, and we have to. These are the giant storms that are going to bring back this kind of level playing field. And I'm like, tell one of those stories, and I'll be fine with it. Tell both of them at the same time, I get confused as to what you really want me to take from this. And so, I had a hard time with it. That being said, I like the fights. I liked seeing the monsters. Mothra was beautiful. I think they did a great job with that. Rodan could have used a little bit more detail. King Ghidorah, I thought that they looked a little bit too much like, the old Chinese paintings and things like that. They should have like kind of tried to go towards a more a new interpretation of what a dragon could look like. And Godzilla just still looks great. He still looks great in this movie. And so, overall, I'd say I had a fun time. Even though I was falling asleep, I'm looking forward to watching it again from my home. And perhaps watching them like all three back to back.
Yeah.
But
it'd certainly be an interesting little marathon.
Yeah.
Like a very tonally strange one, but like an interesting one.
But that's it. Other than that, I thought it was just a big, loud, dumb fest, which is okay, but it felt a bit like a chore to watch.
Okay, that's fair. And Ellie?
That's exactly why I liked it. Because it was a big, loud. I loved it.
Cool.
It's. I get what you're saying about the darkness and stuff, and then trying to hide some of the stuff in that. But also, like, you get some really cool scenes now. And I know, like Lee was saying, the last, 3/10 of the film lost his interest a bit. But for me, even though it is the most ridiculous bullshit that happens at the end, I just fucking love the four-way, not even the four-way fight, like the 2v2 at the end, where two giant lizard monsters are fighting each other, a giant moth with a stinger tail is fighting a giant fucking reptile pterodactyl
thing, yeah.
And then, like, it's all dark, but then you get the Godzilla turning Super Saiyan, effectively.
That's pretty great.
Which is just ridiculous. Like, but because it's so over the top, that's kind of what I liked about it. Which is weird, because it's also like, when you look at other Godzilla films, like not this series, but like Shin Godzilla and stuff.
That was great.
Which is, it's such a good film, and totally different tonally to these films. So I totally get the, like I think I'd be happy either way, where there's like this version of Godzilla where you're looking at like, oh, how does the world survive with the threat of giant monsters, but like on a real human scale. But then I also like these films where it's fucking giant monsters beating the shit out of each other, and also Mothra and Godzilla being in love, which is like, I love that shit.
It's pretty great.
I ship them.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
Jason mentioned like the Warner Brothers connection with the DC earlier, and I thought it was an interesting way of opening it. It reminded me a lot of Batman vs Superman, where it opens by showing like the aftermath of like the first Godzilla film. Yeah, which I thought was interesting, and I kind of wanted to see a bit more of that. Yeah, because I thought that was a really interesting element. That
if they really spent a good 20 minutes on that sort of follow up, it's like such a fucking fleeting flashback. That I almost like kind of forget it when I look back at the film because it was so quick. That whole DC side of it I hadn't considered at all. It's so strange, like I didn't see. I also like the corporate side that Jason brought up.
Yeah,
it didn't strike me like that. I can see it now. I can see it very clearly. Like,
I'm sorry,
why you would say that. Like, but at the same time, I was like, it didn't strike me in the moment. So like, I guess I can't agree, but I also, understand where you're coming from. It's just so strange that how it can affect you so differently. But interesting. And it's not a word you said was incorrect. Just also just very different, I guess.
It's because I liked certain elements. I mean, if you look at the broken family aspect, as a representation of what the United States is going through right now. Vera Farmiga's character is delving in extremism, and look at what's at the heart of the United States right now is that people have gone.
I've got
to
a whole
extremes.
half a page on this, and you've just fucked it up. No, I don't have to say a word.
But I mean, that's it, and even King Ghidorah, this idea of the wrongful king, the guy that's in power, this alien. If you look at it as a metaphor for Donald Trump, he comes from TV. He's not supposed to be in power. He's that alien that's out of context. You know what I mean? And Godzilla itself should be the rightful king. It would be the one that's actually fighting for the people and not against the people. But there are casualties along the way, which is going to create some form of dissent and all that stuff. I get all that. It's just that had I had a little bit less of myself and my prior knowledge of that to take into the film. Like they're asking me to connect the dots that they should have done. You know what I mean? And the whole like destroying of the planet and all that stuff. I get it.
That sort of part of it was like the dumbest part, especially
that's the thing. Yeah,
Monarch themselves. Some of the most flip floppy fucking stances I've ever heard from a evil or good corporation in this. Weren't they evil in in Skull Island?
Yeah,
they seemed like menacing in that film.
Yeah,
and this they're like conservative. It's very fucking, and they even start. Ken Watanabe says like he says something like we'll be their pets or something like that. And then halfway through the film he's like this is wrong. It's really fucking. It just jumps from one stance to the other like nothing.
Well, one thing's good is that Tywin Lannister finally got his fucking dragon.
Yeah.
And all the 10 lines.
I mean, that was a whole element that I don't know if I necessarily needed in this film. Like the whole eco-terrorists or whatever they were labelling themselves as.
That is what they were labelling.
As
being labelled as.
I don't think it was entirely necessary.
As a way to try to convince the audience that it was okay for this woman to just be on board with mass genocide. It
but as a result of something
so
that
contrived and poorly implemented that it was
like she's that's what revenge on the whole planet as a result of losing her son, and you're like, the fuck are you doing?
The genocidal stance on both of the husband guy going in and saying we should just kill all the monsters, like while they're frozen and unable to defend themselves, kill them. He's like, okay, he starts like a genocidal maniac, and then she's like, we should just kill everybody with the giant monster. It's like, is there anybody in this film that isn't trying to kill everybody in some shit before?
Well, there's 11. That's one of the things that I found a bit like strange about those two characters, because the way the film like starts off, you're very like positioned against the dad, like Carl Chandler's character, and he's sort of depicted as the crazy one who's not dealing with the death of their son very well, and then like there's just this weird moment where it just flips and it's like but actually it's the mother that's not dealing with it very well, and I'm just like I didn't need this flip-flopping, like just have one of them not dealing with it well and the other one like being somewhat stable. I didn't need both of them just like.
And I mean, I guess on a metaphorical level it's quite good, like just with the same thing that like Jason was saying, that like in times of crisis families are divided and everybody, you do get a lot of extremist sort of viewpoints, and we're seeing that right now, and that's all pretty good, and the film does like obviously want to force that in there somehow, not particularly well, but it does it. And then it sort of builds to Eleven's arc, where she because it's like a nice little statement, like, okay, but the next generation looks at their parents and goes like, what the fuck happened? Why are you genocidal maniacs? What caused this? And it's like, well, the environment was bad, so that's why we started shooting each other and getting the monsters to kill each other. Like, it's obviously ridiculous, but at the same time, like, I could see that they had good intentions, and the fact that they kept that middle ground and didn't just think, hey, genocide's cool no matter what way you approach it, like it's clearly like somebody should do something about it, and it's probably somebody who's attached but a little removed, like, your children or the next generation. Yeah. And the film, I felt like, it's good that they put that in there. It's weird though, but good.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something like problematic about that messaging of being like, well, the parents have just fucked everything up, so let's let the kids figure it out. Because that does seem to be the stance that like
true.
is being taken. It's like,
well, it seemed more like Judy, like, I have to do this, you know, like, and it was, so it's kind of true to life that kids just end up fixing their parents' problems. But at the same time, like, it is a bit bullshit. Kind of like, this is the hand you get dealt.
Yeah.
And that the film was like, don't worry, somebody else will sort it out.
yeah, exactly. Especially like not only in the film, but in like the world we live in at the moment, the stakes are getting like so high with things like climate change and stuff. And like, I can't remember the name. There's this activist, she's like a 14-year-old girl who's going around.
Greta Thunberg or something?
Yeah, she's like doing all these speeches and stuff, and it's like people are like applauding her, and it's like, yeah, that's good, but what's changing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing.
but
Wait till the dinosaurs do it. What was I going to say?
Delve into what I said. You know, you were talking. You said that you had to.
Oh,
I want to hear. I want to hear your take.
But that was it. That was like, you had already done it, and I didn't have much on that.
Okay.
I thought that it was there, and it was interesting that it was. What I thought was more interesting and a little weird is the stunts that nukes heal.
That was something that I messaged Ellie about afterwards, and I was like, is this problematic considering
and I tried
like
to
the
defend
history
it, but
of
I don't know
Godzilla?
if I can.
Yeah, it's so fucking bizarre, right? So think about the original Godzilla, and I think to an extent the 2014 one.
Yes.
Like, that nuke's bad, metaphor for World War II, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up, that nature comes in, forces itself into the equation to fix man, because man's such a dick and keeps bombing nature. You know, like, fine, so nuke's bad, people usually bad, and nature good. Fine.
Yeah.
So this time, like, nature's still good, but nukes are good, because nukes heal nature. Like, you know, because Godzilla's fucking lying around dormant for a while, and then it's like, alright, just pump him full of nuclear energy, he'll be alright.
You know what my thought was
like,
there? My thought while I was sitting there was like, isn't this going to contaminate the water? How about
God, yeah.
And I was like, that's you're fucking up the ecosystem even more in order to have it heal. And it's like, that's like basically saying, I'm going to punch my wife one more time to see if she really gets the point I'm trying to make.
Leslie walked right past you.
But it didn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? That was my one thing. I was like, you're gonna like have this nuclear detonation underwater in order to make Godzilla better, but you're killing all animal life around us. Whatever.
Yeah,
I was just thinking too much.
That's what I mean. That's
But there was something that didn't sit right with me either, where like, so my understanding is like Godzilla has always been very much like Japan's response to American nuke in the mid-World War II, very anti-nuke message. So to then have this like American film come along and be like, well, we're gonna, you know, reclaim that. Yeah. And now us nuking, actually, pretty good.
You know, it actually did Japan a little good.
Yeah,
you know?
there's something about that that just like
really made them think twice about being an imperialist state.
yeah. Like as soon as that happened, I was just like, that doesn't sit right with me. Like,
No, that's so fucking bizarre.
But,
It's
I get it, and I totally agree with you, and I think you guys are right. But as a sort of devil's advocate, or like, is there another way to look at it? Right? I know that there is that overt message of nukes good, we healed Godzilla, but in that same scene, you also have nukes aren't good because the only way we can use this nuke for good is to sacrifice this just throughout the film nice guy who is just trying to do good. So you have him die, and you also have like the oxygen destroyer bomb, whatever. So like there is also a scene that counteracts that and is like, yeah, let's just fucking bomb these monsters. That sorts everything. And then it's like, oh shit, we just killed the one good thing and made the bad thing better. So like, I get it, and there is definitely a problematic
nukes
message.
good, new bombs bad.
But at the same time,
don't you miss the good old days where nukes were about?
don't you find it problematic that the character they send down is the only Japanese one?
Of course. Like, of
Yes,
course.
massively.
And I was like,
that is the fatal flaw of my argument, Jason. I'm aware of that.
I was like, okay, he's the one going down with the nuke in order
Yeah.
to reactivate the whole. Anyway, I was like, yeah, it's a touch sensitive. I don't know.
It is definitely a massive problem with the film. I just was so desperate to find a reason for it not to be quite as problematic as it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at the same time, like, because it's kind of like the film's like, on board with like the sunk cost fallacy, you know, like in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
Sure, we nuke, but if we nuke again, you know, it will solve our problems. Just
and
keep
we
on
get the
nuking.
Japanese blessing with it too.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry, it's all right.
Yeah,
Nuking
you can
is
do
cool
it this
now.
time because it's for the greater good.
And I mean, like, it does in the film, it solves the short-term problem of, like, monster anarchy, but then it just replaces it with, like, monster monarchy.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing? Like, that is fucking free. What do we do? Like, we now pay this dinosaur to look after us, freeloading off our taxes. I don't really understand what they're trying to build to.
Even that
Yeah.
scene
Or
at
what
the
they-
end when
you know-
all the monsters show up and just kind of kneel, you're like, what
Yeah,
is this,
it's
a
like-
circle of
it's also-
life? Is this very Lion King for some reason?
Yeah.
It's very
One of-
sexist as well, for the
One of-
patriarchy.
One of the monsters in that end scene, right, that kneels, and that they show throughout the film, is a Muto, right? You know, the ones from
Yeah,
the first
that's
film.
right, that's
'cause
right, from the first one.
Either it's a monster that looks eerily close, or it is a surviving Muto, right? So, in the first film, those monsters weren't like, oh, okay, Godzilla's the boss, we'll stop.
Yeah,
And then at the end of this film, they're like, oh, yeah, so we can assume that at the end of this film, that monster's like, oh, Godzilla's just won. Yeah, cool, I won't cause shit. But the moment he pisses off back into the ocean, it is just going to be like destruction. There's now all these fucking alpha monsters that have woken up and are going to kill everything.
The Mutos are like the star screams of the Godzilla verse, and they're just like, oh, we're on your side.
It is very, like, I wonder if the next film, which is obviously Godzilla vs. King Kong, I wonder if it's going to deal with, like, is it all going to be on Skull Island? Because I don't want that. I don't want to watch all the monsters
Maybe it's
go
in New
to
York.
Skull
I
Island.
think it's
but
gonna be
they,
in New
they
York.
can't keep destroying cities. Like, fuck, poor,
No, I know.
Poor Boston.
Oh,
what
but
the
they
fuck,
can.
man.
Have
You know what
you
I'd
seen
love?
the original Godzilla films? That's all that
You know what?
happens.
You know what I would love? I would love it to be in Canada somewhere. Nothing ever
Just like,
happens
fuck up
here.
Quebec.
Have them destroy Toronto or Montreal or some shit. That'd be great for me. I'd just be sitting there like, oh, there goes the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah, at least you
great,
get
man.
something personal out of it. Yeah, that's true. I just think it's funny because the kind of metaphor, if in itself, it kind of seems like it might be about just the franchise Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you do, you know, nukes created this thing, and then like they could pump more nukes into it. You know, if they essentially keep trying to deconstruct it and do something new with it, and all it does is make more Godzilla because it's more exposure. Like, it's this never-ending franchise.
Yeah.
That you can't go back to the source and try to reinvent it. You just end up fucking making more out of it, you know, like, and it's stronger than ever. And I don't know, what the fuck was their point?
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. But
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it was fun. Like, it did pay off because we got to see Super Saiyan Godzilla, and I mean, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That was what I was there for. So, like,
I mean,
It's
one
very
of the
weird.
things,
Yep. Sorry. Keep going.
So one of the things that I did really enjoy was that there was quite a few shots that felt like they were like almost like wallpaper shots where you're like, oh, okay, this is going to make like a good screensaver or something. Like, just the way it was framed and lit and everything, just really like nice to see as like a still image almost. A lot of the actual action, movement, fighting stuff, like Jay said earlier, very Transformers-y, where I think it just lacks the right weight for these things to be like fighting. As you're watching it, the physics of it just don't quite seem to make sense.
like, yeah, especially near the end where they're like in like a go-kart going around town, and
Yeah.
like these like 4 different monsters earthquaking all over the place, and like there's no repercussions for the humans. They're just sort of
Yeah.
steady.
I mean, that whole like final stuff where they're all in like this sort of burnt out city trying to get to Millie Bobby Brown's character. All of that was just very messy for me. Like,
Yeah,
I quite enjoyed some of the
absolutely.
action sequences leading up to that, but that one just no.
It felt like a weird old-fashioned 3D film where things would come to the camera and you'd be like, "Whoa, watch out!"
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, they're trying to shock us in very boring and tame ways, and at the same time, there's so much shit going on, and the environment is so busy that I can't possibly focus on what's happening. And it's strange because in that respect, I do totally agree with the Transformers point of view, But like up until then, I although the weight thing is definitely a problem, I do agree with that. I felt like it was very easy to keep track of the action because it was pretty slow and telegraphed. And what they did very cleverly was always focus on the people sort of trying to get away from it. You know, like they're in this ice place. Sure, maybe a little hard to see, but like I was really on board for that fight where they're in the fucking lifts and this guy's just breaking out of the ice. You know, and I'm like, wow, that's tense. You know, and I actually give a shit because it's very easy to track what the threat is in this particular scenario. And then Godzilla shows up and they're in this bus or whatever. it's like, okay, they're near a cliff and that's tense. I get it. It's important what's happening to these people. They are nearly dead. It's going to be hard for them to get out of this. Whereas the monster side of it is, they're biting and they're shooting lasers, and that part is hard to keep up with. But like the laser nearly hits the plane that's crashed, and they're like, shit, that's important for that reason. And I thought that kept me on board throughout until that last fight scene, which is like there are now 4 monsters beating the shit out of each other. I can't really see them, and also there's like some fucking Prometheus running away from shit that's just not sinking in or making any sense.
I mean, I thought that the fight scenes, as many as there were unimaginative. That was my problem with it, is that
a little bit. They were a little bit like, this worked for Jurassic Park, why won't it work for Godzilla?
Kinda, you know. I mean, like, why didn't Godzilla swing his tail once, you know, to whack like out of surprise? If this guy's like a pure instinct and stuff like that, then he's been fighting for years and years and years. You'd think that he'd pick up some form of experience, and so. But that's it. So, you know, he just goes for the heads all the time. And if he's already fought King Ghidorah, he knows that those heads grow back. He must have found something else somehow. And he's been monitoring that thing in Antarctica, Monster Zero, for I don't know how many years, because now apparently he's got tunnels under the earth. glad Mr. Exposition there, Bradley Whitford, was there enough to give us all that information, and just this expositional dumps. Like, tunnels. What happens to this? Just like, okay, cool. Thank you for solving that problem, Mr. Script person. But yeah, so I think there was one moment where I was like, whoa, that was cool, and I couldn't tell you what it is. Because I got frustrated with just how the action scenes were going. Especially that first fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah down in Antarctica, when they're literally standing. It looks seemingly like the thickest fucking ice you could probably find. Because you got 2 giant dinosaurs going at it. And then you're like, why isn't that cracking? Because every time they take a step, they seem to be cracking something. You know? So that was bizarre to me. And the them trying to get into the helicopter or the plane to get away, and it just seemed so like there's no way that they're just kicking that thing around. If Godzilla kicks something,
like
it's
the force of it, like
dead.
everyone's smeared on the inside.
Exactly, it's just spinning, you know, like it's on ice, and I'm like, have one of them slip. You know, have one of the things miss a.
There was, I agree with that to an extent. It felt very like 12A at times, where like they didn't show a lot of violence or death that actually had consequences because they didn't want to, I don't know, scare off kids. And maybe the original script was like a little more violent, and you did see these sort of repercussions where you're like, dispensable red shirts are flying all over the place. And so in this, like, we get to see maybe like 2 shots of blood on the ground and a sort of off-screen car crushing, and then everybody else survives or gets like eaten cartoonishly without any gore. And you know, it's kind of like, okay, that's it's cool for kids, and that's fine, but like it does kind of, sometimes I was like, this does kind of hurt the sort of impact of what we're supposed to be seeing here. Well, if this is the monster film, like this is a disaster and everybody is like kind of dirtied up, and that's the best they can do.
I think the one part that I remember going whoa and laughing is when the pilot ejects from the jet and he goes directly into Rodan's mouth. I was like, that someone thought of that, and I thought that was good. Really funny. It's like, that's not the place you're gonna just dive into the ocean, dude. That's the best thing you can do. Don't go up where it is. Just like fucking plunge. Do as fast. I thought that was funny. It's like, I'm getting out of here. Like, okay, cool. But I don't know. It's just I'd seen this film before. I feel like that's what it was. When I watched Godzilla in 2014, I was like, wow, this is a fresh take I can get behind. I had never seen what you described as the Mutos before. I'd never seen that concept of a beast before. I love what they did with Godzilla. King Kong, I still like Peter Jackson's version better than Kong Skull Island. I like the 1933 version as well. I'm not keen on the 1976 version of King Kong. But I like the way that the monster's designed. But this one, like I said, I feel like I'd seen this movie before, and I think like you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it was called Jurassic World.
A bit of that, a bit of like what you said, Batman versus Superman, even like, a bit of Justice League in there, where at one point you're like, geez, you're just throwing everything at the screen and hoping something sticks. And it just got to the point where I was kind of clubbed into I don't give a shit anymore. I will rewatch it because the parts that I did like, I really, really liked, But, sadly, I was just like, you guys need a better script. And I know that sounds dumb coming, like, for just a giant action monster movie, but you started it off with the film like that. Why can't you keep going?
That's true. And nobody liked it, Jason.
So, Ellie, I know you obviously want to talk about Mothra.
I do, but actually, I've got something else to say first, Liam, which is not like a pro or a con thing, I don't think. But I think it's an interesting choice they made, because with the comparison to like DC and Batman vs Superman and the Justice League, right? Mm-hmm. One of the problems I had with those films was I felt like, especially BVS, there was that big bit in the middle that is described sometimes as a trailer for Justice League, where they show all the intros for the other characters. Like
that's right. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's I don't know what it means.
They have the same thing in this movie. We keep going.
But they didn't have so when they're showing all the like other alphas waking up, I didn't see any of the famous ones. Like I was sitting there being like, oh shit, we're gonna see like. I can't remember their fucking names, half of them. But they're like a giant woolly mammoth. I was like, that's not a classic Godzilla monster. Like, give me fucking Aquila or whatever his name is, the like rodent with the spiny back.
The armadillo dude.
Give me the dude with the hook hands. Give me Mecha Godzilla. That's what I'm waiting for. These films cannot be done until they give me Mecha Godzilla.
See, Mecha Godzilla is going to be the
suit they build for Godzilla.
Well,
Tony Stark is going to be in the next film.
What if King Kong has to wear a Mecha Godzilla suit to beat Godzilla?
Oh my god. No, but I mean, in that film, Mechagodzilla is going to be the equivalent to the Batman v Superman. Do you know who the fuck did they kill at the end of that?
Doomsday.
He's not called Doomsday.
Yeah.
You know, just the sort of we were going to fight each other, but it turns out that it's actually pretty insensitive to the nations that we represent to actually have one kill the other. So we're just going to buddy up and be joint kings and kill the big robot because we can all agree technology bad, nature good.
Yeah. So yeah, Mothra.
Yeah, Mothra's fucking great, and I will hear no wrong about her. She's my favourite Godzilla monster ever now.
Oh, yeah,
I thought it was going to be fucking stupid. I was like when you see the old clips of Mothra, she's a giant moth. And I was like, it's going to be cool, but also is it just going to look stupid? And like, we'd seen clips and stuff in the trailers, but like, when you get that first scene of her under the waterfall and unfurling the wings, I was like, that looks fucking cool as shit.
Yeah.
And like, there was just the only time that maybe I could see that it was a bit silly was right at the end fight where you can see Mothra in all her moth-like glory. And I was like, okay, it does look a bit weird having a moth fighting lizards. But she was still badass. Like, she takes a shot from Ghidorah and explodes into, like, dust and all that shit. And I was like,
that's right.
She's just so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it leaves the mark.
I'm gonna get the action figure, by the way, of Mothra. I'll be able to take a few pictures of her. She's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
But then, Ellie, you did say, would it be weird if someone fell in love with Mothra?
Yeah, no, I have literally fallen in love with Mothra. I'm terrified of moths, but I do legitimately love Mothra. I came out of that movie like, I've fallen in love with a giant moth monster, and that's fucking weird.
It looks great.
Only by your standards.
Very cinematic monster.
Yeah, genuinely, that scene as well. Not that not the under the waterfall one, but the other one where she's in the sky and lights up everything. I thought that was such a beautiful shot as well. That just looked so cool. Like,
definitely those screensaver moments.
Yeah. When you said
almost
screensaver
a part
moments,
of
I was like, Mothra in the
time.
sky.
How did that scene work, by the way? I wanted to get you guys' opinion on that. Because she comes in to save Godzilla, so she sprays whatever the fuck she's spraying on him, with this magic Tinkerbell fairy dust.
Yeah, magic healing.
Exactly.
Dust, yeah.
But the thing is that he doesn't heal. He needs the nuclear reactor as well. So, I mean...
but he is healing, and they say
it takes too long.
It's going to be about 70 odd years, but it will do it.
Yeah.
She's
right,
just going to wait there.
Cool. That's the part I forgotten. Sorry about that.
It is weird because they don't establish, like, I ended up watching a bunch of stuff about the monsters that were going to be in this film because I'm like a big Godzilla fan who hasn't seen a lot of Godzilla films.
Yes.
So like beforehand I was like, oh, I want to know more about like the history of Mothra and all this stuff. And it's weird that they have these little references to the original Mothra. So she comes from this island. There's these, every generation of these people have these two twins that become Mothra's like attendants. And they reference that in the film because the second in command of what they called the company, Monarch. She's like, oh, my grandparents, my two aunts, like discovered Mothra, and it shows them, and they're these twins. And I was like, oh, that's like them being like, hey, look, we remember the twins. They're in there. But then they don't give you enough information, like the fact that Mothra is this super regenerating creature who lives a life cycle where she grows into Mothra, inevitably dies, and then is reborn as the cocoon. But they don't reference that. So then the whole bit at the end where she is healing Godzilla, you're like, oh, okay, because she's this super regenerative creature, she can help out. But they don't reference it in the film, really. No one's like, we've seen this same monster appear multiple times, or whatever. Just a throwaway line to give it a bit of context.
Just like, this moth monster has magic healing powers.
Yes,
we should have
I would have loved one to be like, I think the moth monster can heal things.
Bradley Whitford is like, they got
do.
the moth, man. It's like this is the 100,000th cocoon that she's made based on our research.
So, with the next one being Godzilla versus Kong, one thing I can't figure out, and I was hoping maybe someone here would be able to help. Why are they going to fight?
Maybe Kong dissents. He believes. There's that. Maybe Kong believes more in like in a democratic party or a system, and that's why he's like, I want equal vote, and Godzilla's like, I have total rule and right over all monsters, and so they it's like a political, it's an analogy for some war. Somebody knows, the American War for Independence. There we go. Boom.
When's the next American elections?
2020.
Oh, and that's when this film's coming out.
Yeah.
Oh, how convenient. Bet
So
they
this
don't reference
is a very strange thing, though, because if you look at the 1933 version of Godzilla, King Kong, sorry, that it's a whole metaphor for colonialism. Black man and all that stuff, bringing them over, profiting from whatever the hell they have. And then you'll have Godzilla from 56, where it's a response to the nuclear attack. And then you'll have Americans making this movie now. And you're like, well, which one's the villain? Because they're both villains.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make Godzilla into a hero. And then in Kong Skull Island, you kind of look at Kong and you're like, I kind of want him to kill these people because they're so dumb. So he's kind of the hero too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay.
See, this is where we're back on the Batman v Superman wagon, because this is the exact same fucking problem. They have to contrive a reason for them to fight.
You know what would be great in the movie, man? Is if Kong looks at Godzilla and he signs like Coco the Kitten type sign language. Do you bleed? And then Godzilla leaves and he signs, you will. I'd love to see that.
That would be amazing.
Or they stop fighting because they both know somebody called Mothra.
Lee, that is the exact joke I made to Liam when he asked me this after the film.
That's good. But I might have stolen that.
Who do you think would win in that fight?
Godzilla? Are you nuts? That guy's a fucking... he's a Super Saiyan. The other guy's just a big monkey.
First of all, King Kong is not fully grown in Kong Skull Island. He's going to be massively bigger than that. And or they're going to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Godzilla. We'll see how they decide to handle that. And don't forget that Godzilla's been fucking like taking down T-Rexes and giant lizards his entire fucking life. Yes, he's maybe not a fire-breathing whatever the hell that is, but who knows? Maybe Godzilla is going to be shooting that nuke shit into King Kong, and it's going to be like the
And
Hulk.
powers
It's
him
going
up.
to be gamma radiation that actually makes him grow, so it's going to go against Godzilla.
Well, that's what we've learned, right? Nukes heal.
Yeah.
Exactly. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe there was a character in the Wildcats called Maul who, if he was next to kinetic energy, it would actually just make him grow and become dumber. Maybe they're going to be ripping off Image Comics somehow, where when Godzilla blows that fire-breathing nuclear energy, it's actually what creates King Kong and makes him grow. So Godzilla will not be able to use that power against Kong, making him on even footing. So we'll see how that goes.
There you go. Then you're going to see your tail attacks at long last. It's going to address your criticisms of the second film.
You never know. I'm hoping that Kong rips out Godzilla's tongue, just like in the original King Kong movie.
I don't want that.
It's really cool.
Seems sad.
Are we going to discuss Godzilla vs Kong when it comes out?
Sure, I don't
Of
mind.
course we are.
Perfect.
Of course we are.
Good.
Let's make this a
That's what I wanted to
tradition.
hear.
I don't mind.
Yeah, no, there won't be. Yous might not have a podcast by then. We'll still come back for this.
Are there any other points about Godzilla King of the Monsters that anyone wanted to make?
I have a few.
Cool.
Just a few. Very short ones. Millie Bobby Brown says, "Would Andrew have wanted this?" And Andrew is the kid who dies at like 3 years old, and when the monster and sort of complains to her mother, like, "What are you doing? Do you think the 3-year-old child would be okay with this?" And it's like, shut the fuck up. The child doesn't know anything. He might actually wanted mass genocide. You don't know.
Well, in my head, my response would have just been, well, he's dead, so it doesn't matter what he wanted. I'm going to do what I want anyway.
But that's why you could just use him for any argument.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, that's why it's not a good argument.
No.
Like, would he have wanted this? It's like, he doesn't want anything. He wants food. He wants food and sleep and play. He's a child.
He wants miniature versions of those monsters.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, he probably thought it was fucking awesome that all these monsters ruled the world. The cross shot.
Yeah.
You know, the shot with Ghidorah.
Oh,
and
that
the
was
cross.
weird.
Like,
Yeah, man, I agree.
what the fuck was that?
It's like religion has no place here.
It's like, it was in my head. It was like, "Where's your god now?" And then the answer is
King
that they
Ghidorah.
are trying to make Godzilla actual Christian god. Is that what they're going for? It's
Well, that's what
yeah,
they
you
did
did
with
a
Superman.
response.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess.
You had the whole
That's
sacrifice
true.
and resurrection, didn't you?
God, yeah, it's the same fucking
Oh,
story.
Christ,
I
no.
never
You
realized
just
it
put that in
before.
my brain now. Now we've got our Godzilla's Jesus. Oh, shit.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
That
so
made
like,
King Ghidorah
but why?
Judas? Anyway.
Yeah, well,
What does that make Kong, though?
I don't know. St. Peter. And they had like a really violent argument about heaven. And then also the film stance on marriage reminded me of the Sophocles quote: "A bad marriage no longer make or oh god, I'm really fucking this up." Like his quote is like, paraphrased terribly: "Marry, a good one is good, and a bad one makes philosophy, or makes you a philosopher, or
Right.
something like that." And it's like, now it's the paraphrasing for the modern times is, "A bad marriage no longer makes philosophy, it makes the apocalypse." It's a really firm stance against marriage, this film. And, without God's presence as well, I mean, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, this is the best I can do with Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters.
I thought it was interesting, like, the very first shot with Millie Bobby Brown in it, who I thought was good in this, but it was her, like, swearing, and it was almost as if they were like, right, we're trying to make a very clear cut here between what you'd know her for with Stranger Things and what we're doing with her now. But equally,
Yeah, she talks in this.
yeah, equally, like, we've been referring to her as 11 throughout a lot of this. I feel like there wasn't, like, they tried to make
the
that cut.
characters. Her name is Madison. I'll remember that. What are the other
Yeah.
characters' name?
Angry Wolfstad.
To me, that's Kyle
Genocide Mom.
Chandler,
Yeah.
Norma Bates, Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I can do Charles Dance, but I can't do any of the others.
Yeah. Bradley
Yeah.
Whitford is all right. 'Cause he's the father in Get Out. Ken Watanabe, I'll always love. Sally Hawkins
Yeah.
is there, and we haven't mentioned her once because she's given nothing to do except die.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which is
It's
a
like,
real
I'm
shame.
too expensive to be in this film for it. This entire contract. You're gonna have to write me out early on because I'm not gonna stick around.
As much as Kyle Chandler is a good actor, he has to change his reaction face because it's always the
Yeah,
same.
I agree.
Always the same.
I've always tried to steer away from describing actors that have a certain expression by that
He's
expression.
always concerned.
But he genuinely does have a constipated look throughout
Just like-
this film. Like, it's really like
Just
really
concerned.
dealing with it.
Yeah.
Because I saw him, like, my girlfriend has gone back and started watching Grey's Anatomy, and he's on the show at one point as a, what is it, bomb squad guy. And he walks in, and I watched Godzilla, like, less than a week ago, and it's the same fucking face. And he's defusing
Yeah.
a bomb again. You know? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, what the fuck? Yeah. The bomb and Godzilla being his wife. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, come on, Kyle, let's go. Get another face.
Yeah, wake up. Chop, chop.
Something
They,
that I thought was really interesting is you had the military sort of leader, for all wants and purposes in this film, was like the woman with like the shaved head, right? I was like, oh, that's
Yes.
really cool. That's like quite progressive. I like that. But then there was another scene later on where you had like two military people talking. I can't remember who plays them, but like someone just does like science mumbo jumbo, and then the woman's like, "Oh, what does that mean?" And then the guy answers, and I was like, "Why are you going to be like all progressive and have like this like cool badass
Yeah.
woman in the lead, but then like you could just flip who asked and who answered that question,
Yeah.
and still be like having a much better outcome than what is just like, oh, okay, it doesn't sit right in this day and age watching that kind of interaction."
Yeah, active mansplaining.
Yeah, exactly.
and for fucking Godzilla exposition, like, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have,
Like,
have Sally
could they have
Hawkins
painted
go,
the same picture?
have Sally Hawkins go deliver the payload.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
solves the whole
But
Japanese thing
that's what I mean.
again.
She's too expensive.
But at the same time, it would have been one of those things where a lot of people would be talking like, "Oh my god!" And in the Del Toro movie, she sleeps with the fish guy, and now she's in love with the giant dinosaur. What the fuck else is Sally Hawkins into?
But that's
I'd be okay
she's
if
like a
it's
mother
just
of a bear in Paddington as well. She's just in with the
if
animals.
all
man.
of her films now is just her being in love with weird shit. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
That's absolutely.
that'd be great. I want to see her on Acto
No.
milking them those same things as Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
I want Moffat to bring her back, and she comes back riding Moffat.
Oh man, that'd be fucking cool. I'd love that.
To be like a heavy metal album. Fucking awesome.
Absolutely. She should be the next Professor X. Shave her head.
Why not?
Tilda Swinton did it
Yeah, she was great too.
for Marvel. Should be a trend.
Bald-headed women. I'm into that.
All right. Is there anything else about Godzilla King of the Monsters?
No, I think I'm out.
They should have
Eddie?
called it Godzilla 2. Period.
Yeah.
It was called Godzilla 2 here.
Oh really? Because King of the Monsters
Yeah.
sounds fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Monsters aren't
But
positive.
it also spoils how it ends.
Well, it's like Return
It's
of
like,
the
is he gonna
Jedi.
be-
Return
I
of the
bet you he's
King.
going to be King of the
It's-
Monsters.
Yeah, true.
It's too long as a film.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I know.
15 minutes.
As a
too
film
long.
in general, you're right. You're right.
15 minutes.
It really could have, like, 20 minutes off it.
Yeah.
It was the 2 hour mark. You know, it had been an hour and 45, maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It would have been a fucking
'Cause
breeze.
2 hours and 15 minutes is just. I'm like, you don't need it.
Mhm. For all that exposition that didn't matter anyway. For all those fucking court cases and shit at the start that
Yeah.
actually
I'm gonna
hurt
have
the
to
film
sit
rather
through all
than
that
aided
and
it.
try to piece it all together. Because on one sitting, you're like, all right, all this is confusing, but it has to be confusing for a reason. So next
Yeah.
time I
Yes.
watch it, I'm gonna take notes and draw timelines. It's gonna be
Well,
great.
'cause, yeah, you had that
Yeah.
whole like court room, and then there's this bit where it's like, oh, if you leave, that we're going to take that to mean bad stuff. I still can't remember what the consequences were of them leaving.
I think that allowed them to use the no oxygen bomb.
Yeah.
That was essentially
Is that
what
what
the consequence of that was,
Right.
but it wasn't super clear.
No.
And it also could have just been done with, like, they could have just dropped the fucking bomb. What does it matter? They also just brought that bomb up out of fucking nowhere anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, by the way, we have a new bomb and it takes all the oxygen out of the air. It's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Go ahead.
But
Because it didn't work on the other one of the monsters because he's from space. So, okay.
so,
Fine.
Ellie, I know you super love this film. I mean, we're all kind
Yep.
of like, you know, not been attacking it so much, but like raising concerns with it. But what's your stance? Like, I know you just love it, so like, do you want to just have a bit of time to explain that?
No, I think I've said all the reasons I love it, and I agree with what everyone's saying. Like, I don't disagree. I just, as we all know from my past comments, I fucking love watching giant monsters beat the shit out of each other. So like, I'm down.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Pacific Rim. Like, it's not a great story, but I get to watch giant robots fight giant monsters, and when I'm in the mood for that, I love it.
Barely visible giant monsters.
I prefer when they are more visible.
We all have our quips, or or niggles.
I like the the one thing that kept me going in this one is just that I like those monsters. I like the design of the monsters, and I was okay. The thing is that what they did with them was underwhelming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's all.
A little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And like at the start, I was saying how people like online, I assume, were complaining about the human element to this. I honestly didn't think it was a big issue. Like some of the what is it, motivations didn't exactly make sense. But at no point was I like, oh, just get me back to the monster fighting scenes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm totally. I had the same approach when I heard that people were upset about the human element, like they were in the other Godzilla.
That's the
film,
thing.
only for totally different reasons. I just kind of get the impression if they got the Godzilla film that is just monsters 100% of the time, they'd also hate that.
Yeah.
So I think it's the thing that a lot of people are trying to convince themselves they like monster movies when they don't, and they want to go for the easy target, which is it's not the monsters, it's the people. And it's not true. Like, the people kind of frame the monsters, and in this case, I thought they did a pretty okay to good job. Not perfect. You can't really tell a good, meaningful, real story that starts with both parents wanting to commit genocide to some degree. To kind of unsets where the reality of the scenario comes in, but there's parts of it I really liked. I genuinely did want to see how they were going to resolve. I cared about Millie Bobby Brown's character enough to be like, I want to see her get through this. Yeah. And I like how she's sort of torn between the parents, but at the end of the day makes her own fucking mind up and just does that. I thought, good. You don't always have to be dependent. You want to do that, but at some point you just got to fucking play the loudspeaker and get the big monster to stop fighting. Like that's fine.
But we've
good.
seen that story in Terminator 2, though.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
story. Yeah, but I'm just saying that it was told better. What I would have really, the first movie deals with the broken family better.
Oh yeah. No,
we didn't need
to
divorced
be clear.
parents. We could have had a
the
grieving
2014 film
family.
Human Element so much better. But yeah, I totally agree. The 2014 film does it just so much better in terms of like that. It realizes that the humans do frame the story to such an extent that it really does play into it. Maybe like in Liam's case, maybe too much. But like at the same time, at least even if the monsters hadn't been there or were just not Godzilla or it was just a faceless amalgam, that part of the story was good in its own right. But the human element, it could have been the same whether it was Godzilla or not, because that's how strong it was. And in this one, it's a lot of how the conflict works out is just because it's heavily leaning on the Godzilla lore, and it kind of weakens it by, like the fact that they have one of them's really into technologically manipulating Godzilla monsters, and while it wants to be like as detached as the first one, it kind of misses because it leans so heavily on how these monsters really do affect their lives. When a lot of the times, like in the first one, it's kind of just an abstract circumstance that separates you, that kind of, yeah. So I kind of get it, but I kind of think this one still did a decent job of, what's that? It's like bumper plate family story. It's fine. Yeah. Is that the word? Bumper plate? That doesn't sound right.
Boilerplate?
Boilerplate, thank you.
It's word head.
Bumper plate. It sure fucking is. I have word.
Alright. Out of 5, Ellie.
4.5.
Lee.
3.5.
Jason.
3.
I would agree with that. It'd be a 3 for me as well.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Yeah, that was awfully amicable, given how the last conversation we had about Godzilla went.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Liam's getting older now. He's less pig-headed.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not that people are just starting to
It's the beard.
see from
Comes
my
out.
point
The
of view.
nobility comes out in the beard.
Alright, next time, on the next episode of your favourite podcast, presumably, we're going to be reviewing and discussing Days Gone, which is a video game, which we don't do a lot of those, so come and check that out, I guess.
Yeah, if you've got thoughts, let us know.
How do they do that?
Tweet us at nerdornerd, email us at nerdornerdpod@gmail.com, facebook.com/nerdornerdpod, all one word. Comment on an old YouTube video, which is the thing Liam's asking people to do, which makes no sense, but they can do it anyway.
Oh, we did get a comment on a YouTube video, actually. I should have mentioned that in housekeeping.
Well, you've missed it now. I'll see you next time.
Ah, well. Jason, where can people find you on the internet?
For now, I'm going to be on Instagram, so come give me a follow if you want to see the pictures we were talking about earlier. It's going to be at Jason B. Michael. Same handle that I have on Twitter. I use it on Instagram. That's it. You'll see about, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 pictures I've taken so far. And it's a really fun community to be part of. So, yeah, it's a lot of positivity there playing.
Awesome. Cool. And Lee, where can people find you on the internet?
I guess I'm still on Twitter. So, at Lee Paul Brady. I don't know. I might do, in the coming weeks or months, I might start working on other projects, seeing as my schedule has kindly opened itself up a little bit. You don't know. There was a podcast I was talking to Jason before about maybe doing, kind of let it go to the wayside, but I might pick it up again. And if that happens, you'll find out on that Twitter.
Ooh. Awesome. Or in a year's time when we talk about Godzilla vs. Kong. Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us.
That's cool.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us, guys. Again, Jesus.
Happy to. Always happy to discuss films and stuff with you guys, even if you are beyond that now. Any final thoughts?
For you.
I'd fuck a giant
This
moth.
episode's so long.
Final thoughts is, as much as I want to do this, I'd say we should do this more often, but then I thought about it and I was like, no, this is just the right amount of time.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.